When you hear fundamental particles, do you still picture a tiny characterless dot with no size, no direction, and no internal motion at all? In the energy filament theory, that flat picture is thrown out and replaced by a much richer one. The universe is a living sea of energy, always rippling and stirring. Every basic particle is a small strand of that sea that has been curled up, pulled tight and closed into a loop so that motion can run around it in a stable way. Textbooks usually dodge the geometry by declaring a particle to be a dimensionless point and then hanging mass, charge, spin, electric field and magnetic field on that point as abstract symbols. The equations may be accurate, but you never see what those properties look like or how they fit together. You just memorize letters and hope the pictures will somehow appear. Here the starting scene is concrete and almost tactile. Imagine a very thin thread floating in a pool. If it lies straight in the water, even a gentle swirl will bend it, twist it, and eventually rip it into pieces that drift apart. Now imagine bending that same thread into a ring and spinning it in the water like a tiny hula hoop. The surrounding flow starts to wrap around the ring instead of shredding it. The disturbances are spread out along the circle, and the loop becomes much harder to break. The energy sea behaves the same way on microscopic scales. It is constantly trying out ways of curling its threads into shapes. Some attempts looked like messy yarn and collapsed in a few turns. Some form loose hooks that are pulled open almost immediately. Only a vanishingly small fraction of patterns are both easy for the sea to sustain and well aligned with its overall flow and tension, so that the loop's circulation and the local beats of the sea support each other instead of fighting. You can think of it as needing roughly one truly stable configuration for something like 10 to the power of 62 failed wrapping attempts. The success rate is absurdly low, but the universe has had an enormous amount of time and an enormous factory floor, so those rare successes can still add up to all the matters we see. Loops win this survival game because they are the most economical and robust shape the sea can settle into. A random knot concentrates stress at sharp bends and will eventually snap at some weak point under repeated pulling. A smooth ring lets the surrounding flow slide around it and spreads disturbances evenly instead of focusing them. A loop also provides a clear track for energy to run on, like a closed racing circuit where cars can circulate lap after lap. That sustained internal circulation is what it means for the particles to exist through time, instead of appearing and vanishing in an instant. In this view, all fundamental particles are looped filaments. The electron is the workhorse ring, the basic part that makes atoms, chemistry, and electronics possible. The neutrino is a near-ideal loop, keeping almost only the bare ring pattern with very little extra structure. Other particles correspond to different winding styles, different tightness, different loop sizes, and different lap speeds on the same underlying filament. This is also why the intuitive idea of a tiny solid sphere does not work here. A perfect little ball has no singled-out direction for motion to follow, no obvious closed track. So the sea has no simple way to set up a stable repeating path inside it. Any internal motion can smear out in all directions and lose coherence. The structure dissolves back into the background. A ring, by contrast, comes with a built-in path. The sea knows exactly where to send energy round and round. And that rhythmic loop is what keeps the particles coherent and long-lived instead of fleeting. Once you adopt this loop picture and let the old point particle sketch fade into the background, the microscopic world stops looking like a fog of mysterious dots and turns into a world of coiled filaments dancing in a living medium. Suddenly, it becomes natural to imagine that charging is not just a plus or minus sign on paper, but the way a loop twists and closes in the sea. That spin is not just a strange quantum number, but the loop's real rotational state. That mass, magnetism, and many other confusing particle properties are simply different faces of how tightly each loop grips the sea, how well it lines up with the surrounding flow, and how costly it is intention to change that pattern. Tap follow, share it on New Physics, Clear Universe.